The Zenith's quantum engines hummed to a halt as the sleek research vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Chief Researcher Vix stood at the observation deck, their crystalline exoskeleton catching the distant sunlight as all four optical sensors focused on the blue-green planet ahead. Another primitive world, Vix announced to their research team, mandibles clicking in what passed for amusement among the Arcturian species. Class 3 biosystem, barely worth our time. But orders are orders. Senior analyst Krill rushed to agree, their younger exoskeleton still bearing the pearlescent sheen of recent graduation from the Galactic Science Academy. The preliminary scans show nothing extraordinary, Chief. Basic carbon-based life forms, mostly following predictable evolutionary patterns. Exactly as I expected, Vix declared, bringing up a holographic display of Earth's various species. Look at these simplistic survival mechanisms. Teeth, claws, venom. How quaint. On Arcturus, we evolved past such crude tools millions of years ago. The ship's AI, designation ARIA, attempted to interject. Chief Researcher, I feel compelled to point out that the historical database shows several previous research teams have failed to complete their surveys. Yes, Vix interrupted. Obviously due to incompetence or poor preparation. We are the elite of the Galactic Science Council. This will be the simplest assignment of our careers. As the Zenith began its descent into Earth's atmosphere, junior researcher Zax approached with a data tablet. Chief, I've been analyzing the planet's apex predators, and some of these readings are rather unusual. This species, called a killer whale, appears to hunt in highly coordinated groups, demonstrating complex social behaviors that Zax, Vix cut in, their tone dripping with condescension. You're fresh from the academy. Everything seems remarkable when you're inexperienced. Trust me, I've cataloged life forms on over 300 planets. Earth's creatures are nothing special. The ship touched down in a clearing near the Pacific Northwest coast. Vix had chosen this location for their first survey, dismissing ARIA's suggestions about starting with something less challenging. Now then, Vix announced to their team of 6 researchers, standard protective fields only. No need for full environmental suits. This isn't some Class 1 death world. They activated their personal shield, a barely visible shimmer of energy that would protect against what they assumed would be primitive threats. As the team disembarked, ARIA made one final attempt. Chief Researcher, my protocols require me to inform you that Earth's wildlife has several unique characteristics that, noted and dismissed, Vix declared. Look around you. The local apex predator is probably that furry quadruped watching us from the trees. They gestured toward a curious black bear observing their arrival. The team spread out, setting up their scanning equipment. Krill approached a nearby tide pool, fascinated by the small creatures within. Chief, these octopuses show remarkable problem-solving abilities for their size. Vix was about to deliver another lecture on not being impressed by primitive life forms when a massive shape breached the surface of the nearby ocean. The killer whale pod had been watching the aliens' arrival with far more intelligence than the visitors had credited to Earth's species, and they were about to demonstrate why Earth's creatures had earned their reputation across the galaxy. The research team was about to learn that on Earth, even the simplest-looking creatures could harbor extraordinary capabilities. Their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating any single species. It was underestimating an entire planet where evolution had turned even the smallest organisms into marvels of survival. And as the first splash of salt water hit their shields, they were about to discover that their advanced technology might not be quite as superior as they had assumed. The first indication that Earth's oceans held more surprises than the Zenith's crew had anticipated came when their shields began to flicker. Chief Researcher Vix's mandibles clicked in alarm as the protective field surrounding their crystalline form wavered under the assault of the killer whale's coordinated echolocation attacks. Impossible, they declared, though their usual confidence had gained a distinct edge of uncertainty. These are merely aquatic mammals. They can't possibly understand the frequency vulnerabilities of our shield technology. But the orcas demonstrated otherwise. Working in perfect synchronization, the pod continued their sonic assault while herding the alien researchers away from their ship. The precision of their tactics left no doubt. These weren't just animals acting on instinct. This was strategic thinking. "Chief," Krill called out, their voice trembling as they studied readings from their handheld scanner. "I'm detecting complex neural patterns in these creatures. Their brains are showing activity that suggests they're talking to each other, planning." Before Vix could dismiss this observation, something massive rose from the depths behind them. The giant blue whale dwarfed their research vessel, its size defying everything they thought they knew about the physical limitations of living organisms. "Araya," Vix called to the ship's eye, trying to maintain their composure. "Explain how we missed a species of this size in our initial scans." "As I attempted to inform you earlier," Araya replied, with what almost sounded like satisfaction, "Earth's oceans contain numerous species that defy standard classification. The creature you're observing is merely one of the larger examples." The blue whale's appearance had distracted them from the killer whales, which was precisely what the pod had intended. While the researchers gaped at the giant, several orcas slipped beneath them, their powerful tails sending precise bursts of water that disrupted the aliens' already weakened shields. "Return to the ship," Vex ordered, their authority crumbling as rapidly as their assumptions about Earth's wildlife. But retreat wasn't as simple as they'd hoped. The tide had risen, and the water around them churned with new life. Bioluminescent creatures pulsed in the depths, creating complex patterns that seemed to carry meaning. Schools of fish moved with impossible coordination, forming and reforming shapes that couldn't be random. And through it all, the killer whales continued their methodical demonstration of intelligence and power. "Chief," Zax called out, excitement overwhelming their fear, "you need to see these readings. The smaller organisms in the water, they're showing signs of collective intelligence. The fish, the squid, even the microscopic plankton. They're all communicating somehow." Vix's professional skepticism finally shattered when a giant Pacific octopus emerged from a nearby rock formation. The creature's problem-solving intelligence was immediately apparent as it manipulated debris from the seafloor, using tools with its tentacles in ways that spoke of sophisticated cognitive abilities. "Fascinating, isn't it?" came a new voice, causing the alien researchers to spin around in shock. A human stood on a nearby research vessel that had approached unnoticed during their ordeal. Marine biologist Dr. Sarah Chen smiled at their surprise. "We've been studying these interactions for years. Earth's oceans aren't just full of separate species. They're a complex network of intelligent life forms working in ways we're only beginning to understand." The killer whales had backed off at Dr. Chen's arrival, but they maintained a watchful perimeter. The octopus continued its demonstration of tool use, seemingly aware of its role in this impromptu demonstration of Earth's marine intelligence. "But our studies showed," Vix began, then stopped, realizing how inadequate their preliminary scans had been. They had looked for intelligence that matched their own, never considering that Earth's creatures might have developed different, but equally sophisticated forms of consciousness. "Your study showed what you expected to see," Dr. Chen suggested gently. "You looked for advanced technology, for civilizations that mirror your own. But Earth's species evolved different kinds of advancement. Our oceans don't just contain life. They contain networks of intelligence that communicate and cooperate in ways your sensors weren't designed to detect." As if to emphasize her point, a sperm whale emerged nearby, its complex clicking patterns demonstrating a language that the aliens' universal translators couldn't begin to decipher. The whale was followed by a great white shark, its presence a reminder that Earth's oceans housed not just intelligence, but ancient, refined predatory skills that had been perfected over millions of years. Perhaps, Vix admitted, their scientific curiosity finally overcoming their prejudices, we should revise our classification parameters. And, they added, watching as the killer whales continued their coordinated movements. Perhaps we should accept your offer of guidance for our continued research. Dr. Chen smiled again, knowing this was just the beginning of the aliens' education about Earth's extraordinary marine life. Wait until you see what happens during the deep-sea portion of our tour. There are creatures down there that will make you question everything you think you know about the limits of life itself. The Zenith's crew exchanged glances, their earlier confidence replaced by a growing appreciation for the complexity of Earth's oceans. They had come expecting to find simple creatures driven by basic instincts. Instead, they had discovered an underwater civilization of sorts, where intelligence took forms they had never imagined possible. And they hadn't even reached the deep ocean yet. After their humbling experience in Earth's oceans, the Zenith's research team approached the Amazon rainforest with considerably more caution. Their crystalline forms reflected the dappled sunlight filtering through the dense canopy as they followed their new human guide, Dr. Marco Santos, an expert in tropical ecology. Your protective shields have been upgraded to account for the local wildlife, Araya announced, though Vix noticed a distinct tone of amusement in the eye's voice. Though I should warn you, these organisms have a remarkable tendency to adapt. The jungle hummed with life around them. Vix's sensors detected thousands of different species within a single square meter, each filling a precise ecological niche. The complexity was overwhelming, even for their advanced monitoring systems. Watch this, Dr. Santos said, pointing to a seemingly ordinary tree. As they observed, a line of leafcutter ants marched along its trunk, each carrying a precisely cut piece of foliage. These ants aren't just collecting food, they're farming. They cultivate fungus gardens in their colonies, maintaining perfect temperature and humidity conditions. They're agricultural specialists. Krill, who had been unusually quiet since their ocean encounter, leaned in to study the ants. But they're so small. How can they maintain such complex systems? Size, Dr. Santos replied with a knowing smile, has very little to do with sophistication on Earth. These ants have been practicing sustainable agriculture for millions of years before humans even existed. A sudden movement caught their attention. A jaguar emerged from the undergrowth, its muscled form a testament to millions of years of evolutionary refinement. But instead of attacking, it merely observed them with intelligent eyes before melting back into the forest. Did you notice? Zax asked excitedly, reviewing their scanner data. The jaguar's neural patterns, they showed signs of complex decision-making. It wasn't just assessing us as prey. It was gathering information. Vix nodded, their earlier dismissiveness replaced by growing fascination. The predators on this world, they're not just hunters, they're strategists. Their discussion was interrupted by an extraordinary sight. A group of capuchin monkeys was using stones as tools, cracking open palm nuts with precisely calculated force. Nearby, a crow fashioned a hook from a twig to fish insects from a tree trunk. Tool use, Dr. Santos explained, is far more common in Earth species than most people realize. But what's truly remarkable is their ability to teach these skills to others. We've documented cultural transmission of knowledge across generations in numerous species. As if to demonstrate this point, they watched as an adult monkey showed a younger one the exact technique for nut cracking, adjusting its pupils' grip and force with patient instruction. Impossible, Krill whispered, though their tone suggested they no longer believed in impossibilities where Earth was concerned. They're teaching abstract concepts. The day brought more revelations. They observed parasitic fungi that could control insect behavior, plants that communicated through underground fungal networks, and birds that could remember thousands of hiding places for their food. Each discovery challenged their understanding of intelligence and adaptation. The climax of their jungle expedition came when they encountered a clearing filled with spider webs. But these weren't ordinary webs. They were massive collaborative structures built by multiple species working together. We're still trying to understand how they coordinate, Dr. Santos admitted, watching the aliens' reactions. Different species of spiders, normally territorial or even hostile to each other, somehow cooperate to build these structures. They create complex pulley systems, transportation networks, and defensive formations. It's architecture on a scale we wouldn't have thought possible for creatures this size. Vic studied the webs with all 4 optical sensors, their scientific training warring with what they were witnessing. The level of engineering involved, the mathematical precision. These aren't just instinctive constructions. No, Dr. Santos agreed. They're the result of collective intelligence, strategic planning, and possibly forms of communication we haven't even identified yet. Earth's species don't just survive, they innovate. As night fell, the forest transformed. Bioluminescent fungi glowed in patterns that seemed to pulse with meaning. Nocturnal creatures emerged, demonstrating entirely new sets of survival strategies and social behaviors. Chief Zax reported, reviewing their day's data. I've been comparing our observations with standard galactic classification protocols. According to every metric we normally use, this single forest contains more evolutionary innovations than most entire planets we studied. Vix nodded slowly, watching as a group of parrots engaged in what appeared to be a complex social interaction, complete with tool use and problem-solving. We need to completely reconceptualize how we evaluate planetary ecosystems. Earth isn't just a world of surprising creatures. It's a laboratory of evolution, where even the smallest organisms can develop extraordinary capabilities. And this, Dr. Santos added with a grin, is just one forest. Wait until you see what's evolved in Earth's other biomes. The research team exchanged glances, their earlier certainties about Earth's primitive nature thoroughly shattered. They had come to study what they thought was a simple ecosystem. Instead, they had found themselves in a world where every creature, from the smallest ant to the largest predator, could demonstrate intelligence and adaptation beyond their wildest expectations. And they still had the rest of Earth to explore. The zenith hovered above the Arctic ice sheet, its advanced thermal shielding struggling against the extreme cold. Inside, Chief Researcher Vix and their team prepared for what they hoped would be a more straightforward survey. After their experiences in the oceans and rainforest, they had chosen the Arctic for its apparent simplicity. Surely, Vix reasoned, their crystalline form reflecting the stark polar light. An environment this hostile must limit the complexity of its life forms. Aria's response carried a now familiar note of amusement. Shall I remind you of your similar assumptions about Earth's other biomes? Their new guide, Dr. Nadia Volkov, a veteran polar researcher, smiled as she adjusted her thermal gear. The Arctic may seem harsh, but its creatures have developed adaptations that even our most advanced technology struggles to replicate. As if on cue, their sensors detected movement below. A polar bear emerged from a snowstorm, moving with impossible grace for its size. The aliens watched in fascination as it approached a seal's breathing hole, demonstrating not just patience, but complex hunting strategy. Notice how it masks its black nose with its paw, Dr. Volkov pointed out. That's learned behavior, passed down through generations. These bears understand concepts like visual concealment and wind direction. They're not just strong, they're tactical hunters. Krill, monitoring their biological scanners, suddenly straightened. Chief, I'm detecting unusual neural patterns in the ice below us. It's coming from the seals. They watched as a group of seals executed a sophisticated escape plan, using multiple breathing holes and coordinated movements to confuse the hunting bear. The level of cooperation and strategic thinking was undeniable. But this is just the surface, Dr. Volkov continued. Wait until you see what's evolved under the ice. The team deployed their submersible probes into the frigid water. What they found challenged their understanding of survival itself. Schools of Arctic cod moved in synchronized patterns that defied normal behavioral models. Their antifreeze proteins, preventing ice crystals from forming in their blood, represented biochemical innovation beyond anything in the galactic database. Impossible, Zax whispered, reviewing the molecular data. They've evolved biological mechanisms that our most advanced ships need complex technology to achieve. The revelations continued as they studied more species. They discovered that Arctic foxes could predict weather patterns with uncanny accuracy, planning their hunting strategies days in advance. Ravens demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rivaled some of the most sophisticated AI systems. But it was the discovery of life in the most extreme conditions that truly shattered their remaining preconceptions. Dr. Volkov led them to a deep ice core sample, where their instruments detected something extraordinary. Life, she explained, indicating microscopic organisms trapped in the ancient ice, finding ways to survive in conditions that should make existence impossible. These microorganisms have developed cellular mechanisms that rewrite everything we thought we knew about the limits of life. Vic studied the readings with all 4 optical sensors. They're not just surviving, they're thriving, creating entire ecosystems in microscopic pockets within the ice. Their discussion was interrupted by a haunting sound, the complex vocalizations of a pod of narwhals. The aliens listened in wonder as the creatures communicated using sophisticated acoustic patterns that their universal translators couldn't decipher. The complexity of their language suggests higher cognitive functions. Krill noted, their scientific detachment failing to hide their amazement. They're not just communicating. They're sharing detailed information about ice conditions, prey locations, and social relationships. As night fell, bringing with it the ethereal dance of the aurora borealis, the team witnessed something unprecedented. A group of Arctic wolves coordinated with ravens in a hunting strategy that demonstrated cross-species cooperation. "We've been observing this behavior for years," Dr. Volkov explained. The ravens act as aerial scouts, guiding the wolves to prey using specific flight patterns. In return, the wolves ensure the ravens get a share of the hunt. It's a sophisticated partnership that evolved naturally. Vix, who had begun their Earth survey dismissing the planet as primitive, now found themselves struggling to process the implications. Every environment we've studied on this world, no matter how extreme, has produced life forms with extraordinary capabilities. Even in these frozen wastes, evolution has created innovations that our science can barely comprehend. Perhaps, Dr. Volkov suggested, watching as a snowy owl demonstrated its own remarkable hunting adaptations, that's exactly why Earth's life forms are so remarkable. It's not despite the harsh conditions. It's because of them. Each challenge, each extreme, has driven the evolution of new solutions, new forms of intelligence, new ways of survival. The team spent the night observing the intricate dance of Arctic life. They watched as tiny snow fleas demonstrated cold resistance that defied physics as they knew it, and documented how Arctic hares transmitted complex social information through subtle behavioral cues. "Chief," Zax reported, compiling their findings, "I believe we need to create an entirely new classification category for Earth. These aren't just adaptations. They're evolutionary innovations that redefine what we thought was possible." Vix nodded, their earlier arrogance completely forgotten. Earth isn't just another life-bearing world. It's a planet where the very constraints of survival have driven the development of extraordinary capabilities at every level of life. And as they prepared for their final survey location, they wondered what other revelations Earth's remarkable creatures had in store for them. The Zenith orbited Earth one final time as Chief Researcher Vix prepared their report for the Galactic Science Council. Through the observation window, the planet's swirling blue-green surface seemed to mock their initial dismissive assessment from just weeks ago. "Aria," Vix addressed the ship's eye. "How would you summarize what we've learned?" "Perhaps," the AI responded thoughtfully, "it would be more meaningful if you shared your own conclusions. Chief Researcher, you've changed considerably since our arrival." Vix's crystalline form shifted in what their species recognized as thoughtful acknowledgement. Around them, the research team gathered, each carrying data crystals filled with observations that would revolutionize the galactic understanding of evolutionary potential. "When we arrived," Vix began, their voice carrying new humility, We thought we were studying a primitive world. Instead, we found ourselves documenting a planet that will require us to rewrite our entire classification system. Dr. Chen, Dr. Santos, and Dr. Volkov had joined them for this final briefing, representing the Earth scientists who had guided their journey of discovery. The humans listened quietly as Vix continued their report. In Earth's oceans, we discovered not just life, but networks of intelligence that communicate and cooperate in ways our science had never imagined. Killer whales with strategic thinking that rivals our military tacticians. Octopi that demonstrate problem-solving abilities we thought impossible without advanced technology. Deep-sea creatures that defy our understanding of biological limits. Krill brought up a holographic display showing their rainforest observations. In the jungles, we found complexity that our most advanced systems struggled to catalog. Insects building agricultural societies, birds demonstrating tool use and cultural transmission of knowledge, spiders creating architectural marvels through cross-species cooperation. And in the Arctic, Zax added, their excitement still evident, where we expected to find simple organisms focused solely on survival. We instead discovered life forms that have developed innovations our technology can't replicate. From antifreeze proteins to sophisticated hunting strategies, from microscopic ice-dwelling ecosystems to cross-species cooperation networks. Dr. Chen stepped forward. You came looking for advancement as you understood it, technology, structures, obvious signs of intelligence. But Earth's species evolved different kinds of advancement. Each adaptation, each innovation, represents a solution to challenges that drove evolution in unexpected directions. That's precisely what we failed to understand initially, Vix acknowledged. We were looking for progress that mirrored our own. Instead, we found a planet where evolution has produced countless forms of intelligence, adaptation, and innovation, each perfectly suited to its niche, but capable of complexity we never imagined possible. The holographic display shifted to show their combined findings. The deep-sea bioluminescent networks, the jungle's intricate ecological connections, the Arctic's extreme environment adaptations. Each revelation had challenged their preconceptions about what life could achieve. Our recommendation to the Council, Vix declared, will be to reclassify Earth as a Class 1 evolutionary crucible, a planet where the very process of life itself has achieved unprecedented sophistication. This isn't just another world with interesting creatures. Earth is a living laboratory where evolution has produced innovations that our science is only beginning to understand. Dr. Volkov smiled. And you've only scratched the surface. There are species we haven't even discovered yet, behaviors we're still trying to understand, adaptations that continue to surprise us. Which brings me to our final recommendation, Vix continued. We're going to propose establishing a permanent research exchange. Your scientists have developed observational techniques and insights that we need to learn from, just as our technology might help you better understand your world's extraordinary inhabitants. The humans exchanged pleased glances. This was exactly the kind of cooperative relationship they had hoped to establish. There's one more thing, Vix added, their tone carrying what the humans had learned to recognize as amusement. We need to update the warning beacons at the edge of your solar system. The current message about Earth being a primitive world of limited interest needs to be replaced with something more accurate. Oh, Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? Something along the lines of, warning, you are entering the territory of Earth, evolutionary forge of the galaxy. Prepare to have everything you think you know challenged. Approach with wonder, study with humility, and leave with respect. As the Zenith prepared for departure, Vix took one final look at the planet below. They had come seeking simple subjects for study, and found instead teachers who had transformed their understanding of life itself. Earth's creatures had commanded their respect not through technology or obvious signs of advancement, but through the endless creativity of evolution itself. The planet turned below them, its surface teeming with countless species, each carrying lessons they were only beginning to understand. They had arrived as arrogant observers and were leaving as humble students, aware that they had witnessed something extraordinary. A world where life itself had become an art form, where every creature, from the smallest microorganism to the largest predator, demonstrated the boundless possibilities of evolution. Earth wasn't just another life-bearing world. It was a testament to the incredible potential of life itself, and its study would keep the galaxy's scientists busy for generations to come.